Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I am delighted to welcome a well-recognized and accomplished coach and author from Ras Al Khaimah, United Arab Emirates, Linda Mcloughlin. Linda, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. My pleasure.
Thank you. Linda is the founder and director of LeadershipWorks International. She has been recognized as the top coach of the year and the mentor coach of the year. She's a member of the ICF Global Board, and she's the author of 2 big books. And all of you know, I am very partial to authors. So, Linda, let's start talking about LeadershipWorks International. Tell me a little bit about this venture and your motivation to start it.
LeadershipWorks, Ashutosh, is a kind of a boutique consultancy. And really, we are about everything to do with coaching, particularly executive leadership and team coaching. So I work with organizations here in the Gulf, but also in Europe, right around the world. I've had the pleasure of working with the top companies over 5 continents. So we work in the coaching space, definitely around building capacity in organizations around their leadership bench strength. But the other thing I've been doing increasingly is training other people to be coaches and to be credentialed coaches. So I have got approved training status from the International Coaching Federation, which is the leading professional body representing over 50,000 coaches worldwide. So that is my biggest joy right now, because I'm kind of coming to the second half or end, if you like, of my career. So this opportunity to bring other people into my profession, to share my wisdom, my knowledge, and expand our profession is really, really very, very satisfying for me.
Fascinating. And before I get into any questions on coaching, what made you become a coach?
You know, I like to say I became an accidental coach, because you may guess from my accent that I'm originally Irish. And I was working with the Institute of Public Administration, which is a very well recognized body in Ireland. And we were about, promoting excellence in public services through research, through training, through development. And I was head of their leadership development there, running flagship programs for very senior public servants. And it was a blend mainly of training, but we began to introduce a thing called coaching. I didn't even know it was really coaching, but we were doing 360-degree feedback, which, if you imagine, nearly 30 years ago was quite leading edge then. And we would do one-to-one feedback sessions with these very senior leaders and help them develop a kind of a career plan based on the feedback. And I just loved that one-to-one work. I found it very powerful with senior people, because I think in groups, they may be a little guarded, because, they have a persona to maintain. Whereas when you meet them one-to-one, you can give them a lot more value. So I realized then, I love this one-to-one. I find it very powerful. And then I began to realize this is a thing called coaching. So I kind of retrofitted myself then. I found coaching training and educated myself with a diploma in coaching. And then more and more immersed myself in that world, joined the ICF, became a board member in Ireland, in the Irish chapter, and then kind of got involved at the global level of that organization. So it was, as I say, it was an accidental start, and I just found my passion, my niche, and I just am so grateful for that.
Fascinating. So, Linda, let me take you back when you started. I mean, I've been thinking and talking to a lot of people. 4 decades ago, when I started working, coaching or mentoring was either done by a family elder or by a senior colleague who took a liking for you. What has changed now that coaching has become a profession? and people are willing to pay for it?
Great question. I think there still is the scope for that mentor, that elder lemon, someone who is willing to support you and share their experience, have your back, give you advice. I think that concept of a mentor will always be with us. But generally, the mentor, it's a volunteer position, it's unpaid, it's untrained. I think what's fascinating about coaching is that, and as we know more about neuroscience, we realize that coaching is a completely separate modality. So it is a profession, it is paid, it is a formal relationship with the client. And the idea really is that you can create transformation with clients, either at an individual level or at a team and organizational level, through using the skills of coaching. And what happens is in coaching, you create the relationship first. That's number one. Create safety, create a space for confidentiality where the person or our team can really be open and feel safe to express themselves. That's number one. From there, you have to create goals. So it is quite a formal engagement, a bit unlike mentoring, which can unfold in an informal way. So we're very goal driven. And once we have the goals, we then work with the clients, but not in a telling way. This is the magic of coaching. We rather ask questions and we provide observation and reflection back to the client based on what they're saying. And this is magic, is where the person gets their own aha moment. They develop awareness, and then we help that person take that awareness, that aha moment, to an action. And so in that way, we start with the relationship, we move to goals, we then move to our aha moments, to action, and therefore to impact and results. And as coaches, we're accountable that the clients find that value in our relationship with them. So it's a very structured process.
This is probably one of the best explanations I have been given of the multiple stages of coaching. Thank you for that. But my next question for you would be that, as a coach, you must have worked with so many different people. What are your special skills that you bring to a relationship based on all your experience?
I would say I have an ability to connect with people and to establish what I would call psychological safety with them. I like to think I'm very non-judgmental. So for me, I start with the person. And as a coach, it's not, people sometimes think, oh, it's all about solving problems. No, for me, it's about unleashing potential in the person. So I see it always as a positive thing. So I start with that relationship. I also think my skill is I'm a very deep listener. So as people are talking, I can kind of get what they're not saying or what they wish they could say more openly. And I allow them and encourage them to say that more openly.
Amazing.
And I think the third thing I have is I'm very intuitive. I truly believe in integrating the head, the heart, and the gut. I think there's a lot of, especially in Western education systems, too much emphasis on the head. I would say the head is important, but we have other sources of intelligence. And I have a very strong gut. And my gut helps me guide my client to what is the block, what might be the saboteur in their head, in their life, and what can they do to unlock that. So yeah,
what a great response. What a great response. Thank you. So another question that is often asked, Linda, by people who are being coached or the coachees, how does one evaluate that they have a good coach? I'd love to get your perspective.
How does the coachee decide if the coach is good for them?
Yeah.
Well, I would answer that in two ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is an external kind of validation process there, because essentially, my advice to anyone getting into a coaching relationship is check out the qualifications and the credentials of the person who is calling themselves a coach. We are a self-regulated profession. So in that way, you must do your due diligence to make sure that you are working with a bona fide coach. So someone who belongs to a professional body like ICF,
Mm-hmm.
they are bound by a code of ethics, which gives you a comfort level that whatever you share cannot be spoken about outside. So making sure your coach is trained by approved training providers, that they have a credential from an external body, that they are members and governed by a code of ethics. I think that's a first due diligence bit. So that's number one. Now, number two, I think there's a kind of another personal magic moment here, because we've all heard of chemistry, and we have chemistry, when we fall in love and maybe we marry that person. So if in a way, we need to know that the person who's going to coach us understands us, that we feel comfortable with them, that we trust them, that we respect them. So one of the things I always do, and most coaches will do who are ICF trained, is offer a free chemistry meeting. And that free chemistry meeting should be anything from 30 to 60 minutes. It allows you kind of see, am I comfortable with this coach? Do we connect? Can I see myself working with them to be my best self? So I think, it's both qualifications and chemistry.
Well
comes
said.
down to that.
Well said. My next question to Linda is about the younger generation of managers who are now coming in, the millennials and the Gen Zs. And a lot of the millennials are beginning to get into leadership roles. You have worked with people across age groups, I'm sure. How do you believe coaching the millennials and the Gen Zs is different, given that their worldview is probably significantly different from older managers?
It's an interesting point, Ashutosh, because as I'm getting older, my clients are getting younger. And it's wonderful to be in the presence of the younger generation and to see the promise and to see their energy and their values. There is great purity in their values. It really is inspiring to me. We've just at the ICF, we do a lot of global level research studies, which I know you will appreciate. So a lot of what I would work on is based on research. And our latest consumer awareness study of coaching that was just published a month ago, it says that Gen Zs, and particularly younger millennials, because millennial generation is quite a broad spanning one, they are so open to coaching. Because they are the generation most open to coaching, who will most expect it to be provided by their employers. They see it as a natural part of being a leader. So this is great news for us as coaches. And I think why it's because coaching at some level mirrors the parenting that this generation had. It mirrors the schooling they've had. Because if I think back, and maybe I think we're around the same age group, we were like children seen, not heard. That's how I was brought up. And in school a little bit the same. Whereas these kids have been brought up, they sit at the table with the adults from 2, they're listened to, they're asked for their opinion, they're given 100% attention, they're valued for their opinions. And coaching does that.
That is
So it's a modality that they are very, very comfortable with, and it's non-hierarchical. And working with this age group, one of the biggest turnoffs for them is that where they find the top leaders not open, not communicating with them in real time. That's one of their frustrations. Whereas coaching is all about the focus on the individual and asking those curious, open questions. And they love that.
Amazing. Fascinating. So one more question on coaching before I move to your books. Do you see a difference in coaching top management versus emerging leaders?
Yes, I think there is. And the difference is experience.
Mm-hmm.
And experience can have a good side and a bad side.
Correct.
First of all, very senior leaders, and I have had the privilege to coach, C-suite and in multinationals right around the world.
Right.
Very able people, but for them, the higher up you go, the less feedback you'll get. The harder it is to truly confide and to be vulnerable, to say you don't know if you're at the top of the pyramid. So this is where I think when these senior executives come into coaching, it provides a great safety net for them, because they can be fully open, fully vulnerable, knowing it's confidential. And also they know that their coach maybe is empowered to give them feedback that their reports won't give them. And we can think of many world leaders today, I won't name names, who aren't getting feedback. So that's on the one hand. And I guess what can happen, because senior executives are very isolated, the issue of ego can come in.
Correct.
So sometimes I find as a coach that I have to build a lot of trust and a lot of respect with those clients so that the ego is minimized. And then we can get into the juicy stuff in coaching. Now, when you look at the younger, the leadership, emerging leaders, as you say, ego is rarely an issue there.
Yep.
And they are hungry for development. And this is where coaching has shifted hugely in the last 20 years. It used to be seen as, oh, we have a problem employee, bring in a coach to fix them,
Absolutely.
Now it's seen as a kind of a reward. It's a merit badge. You've been picked, you're a high potential, you've been picked for coaching. So they're very open. And I mean, they feel privileged. And also, I would say another big difference is you will use more assessment tools with the emerging leaders. Personally, I tend not to use those so much with the very seniors.
Very interesting. That's an absolutely amazing conversation on coaching. But now I want to move to the next part of our conversation, which is about your books.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your books, the names of the books, whether they're available on Amazon.
Okay. Well, actually, I knew the call was coming up, so I went to my bookshelf to remind myself. So
show us your books.
One. And it's called, it's not a very exciting title, Reform and Leadership in the Public Sector.
Okay.
And I co-wrote that with Joe Wallace and Brian Dollery. And my other book is called The International Handbook of Public Management Reform.
Okay.
And then I was a contributor to that book. So those books came out of another life, my life before I set up LeadershipWorks. Right. When I worked for the Institute of Public Administration. It was an exciting time to be in public administration in Ireland. So just to give the context to the book and the research, public services in Ireland, right around the world, actually, were going through major transformation. They were trying to take this dusty, hierarchical, pen-pushing type of an institution and pull it into the 20th century at that time. So we were introducing strategic management, we were introducing performance management, all of this stuff, some private sector processes, say around procurement and contracting for services. All of this was very, very new. And of course, to make this transformation, we needed to develop the leaders. It had to be driven from the top. So part of my role was to design leadership development programs that would open the minds to the change. And in running those leadership development programs, and I must have brought over 1,000 senior civil servants and public servants through them, I was collecting data from the assessment tools we used. And it was very interesting. I had in-depth data. And what I saw was, while we might think in a reform process, we want innovation, we want strategy, etc., that actually the existing leaders did not exhibit the behaviors that were really required.
Okay.
Nor were those leaders get promoted because they showed innovation or strategy. It was the ones who were more in the steady state management. And I began to ask, is this change a rhetoric or is it real? And it just opened up a great debate. And I'm happy to say that my research was quoted by the OECD, who did a major review, an external review of Irish public services. So it's kind of Irish, and let me just say as an addendum, Irish public services, if you look at them today, almost 18 years after I published, or 15 after I published that book, they have changed. They have emerged. Eventually it happened, not as quickly as we would have liked, but they got there. So I think the bottom line is leadership is crucial in any of the change we want to see in our world. And I do think coaching has a huge part in helping leaders develop. I'd love to do a new book now. You're inspiring me today, Ashutosh. And I'm thinking now I want to do something more personal, more like a memoir.
You must. And what an amazing journey you've had as a coach. So you have a wealth of knowledge and information that you must get into a book now. So
I know. I just now need to make the time to do that.
I agree. But Linda, on that note, thank you so much for speaking to me about coaching, about your journey, telling me in so much detail about what goes into an effective coaching program. What should one look for in one's coach, and how does one evaluate one's coach? And thank you again for talking to me about your books. And I'm looking forward to your new book whenever you're ready with it. Thank you again and good luck.
My pleasure, and thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for The Brand Called You.